After studying this module, you shall be able to know about Buddhist view of the human nature, learn about the teachings of Buddha, Vasubandhu and the Eight Consciousness, identify the various practices prevalent in the Zen Buddhism, and analyze the implications of Buddhist psychology for psychotherapy. Buddhism is based on the teachings of Siddhartha Gautam, the Buddha, which means one who is awake. According to Buddhist doctrine, many Buddhas came before and after Gautam Buddha and are still to come. Buddha attributed his realization and attainment of full humanness to his human capacities. He developed himself into a mature human being who was content and complete. The central tenet of Buddhism is that every human being possesses this Buddha nature. According to Ramaswamy and Sheikh, the psychology of Buddhism rests on the notions of the absence of a separate self, impermanent of all things, and the fact of sorrow. When Buddha achieved enlightenment, he started preaching about the nature of reality, cause of human suffering, peace, compassion, and road to self-discovery. Buddhist teachings were initially passed down through oral traditions and later compiled in written form in 3 collections or baskets called Tripitaka. The scriptures constitute the teachings of 2 main branches of Buddhism, the Hinayana or the small vehicle and the Mahayana or the great vehicle. The Hinayana school, which is represented by the Theravada school today, is dominant in the southeast parts of Asia, while the Mahayana school is dominant in East Asia, particularly Japan and China. The Zen school of thought belongs to the latter tradition. Its roots can be traced back to India. Later it was influenced by the Taoism of China and passed through Korea and Japan and from there to the rest of the world. Teachings of Buddha. Dependent origination. About 2.5 millennia ago, many philosophical schools of thought existed in India with different positions on human nature. One extreme was the externalist position, where a person's soul or Atman takes numerous births to become purified and join the Brahma or the Supreme God. The other extreme is the anahilist position, which says that a human being gets completely destroyed at death. The Buddha discovered a middle path between these 2 extremes. He called this position dependent origination, which advocates a lifestyle that avoided the extremes of self-indulgence and self-mortification. Thus, this position is also called the middle way. Dependent origination is a law of causality, which implies that all internal and external events come into existence due to causes and conditions which can be internal or external. It believes that these causes and conditions are necessary for the internal and external events to exist. Everything in this universe is connected to these events and there is no end to this causal interconnectedness. These events cannot exist by themselves. For example, for every emotion, perception and thought, there are certain necessary conditions without which they would not have come into existence. Thus, everything occurs dependently and only when certain necessary conditions are there. So, A is simultaneously a necessary condition for B to occur and B being necessary for A to exist. Katagiri calls this interdependent co-origination and Hahn calls this interbeing, where things and mental states inter-are. The 3 characteristics of existence. According to Buddha, there are 3 characteristics of existence: anicca, dukkha and anatta. Anicca, which means impermanence, implies that everything is continuously changing. Nothing is permanent. For example, a human body continues to grow from a small child to an adult, and these changes continue well into advanced age. This is the true nature of things. Understanding this impermanence helps the individual to avoid any kind of unrealistic expectations. Attachment and aversion are of no use, as we cannot hold to anything for long or claim it forever. Dukkha, which roughly means suffering, refers to the dissatisfaction and distress that a person experiences due to too much attachment or aversion. Buddha suggested 4 noble truths as a solution to end any kind of dukkha. According to him, if everything exists due to certain causal conditions, then dukkha ceases when the causal conditions which are necessary for its very existence cease to exist. These 4 noble truths have been called as the most important psychological discovery of all time. They are as follows: our perception of old age, pain, illness and death, not getting the desired object and being exposed to something undesirable, and not being able to hold on to something that is dear to us and not being able to eliminate something unwanted, is the universal dissatisfaction that characterizes human existence. Suffering and dissatisfaction are not caused by their own. They arise from our desire and craving of things. Suffering arises either when we are attached to the things that we love, wanting to possess them forever, or when we are aversive to things that we never wanted in the first place, giving rise to anger, resentment and hate for the way the things are at present. To overcome our dis-ease, we must overcome attachment and aversion to the things which do not hold anything for us, but only self-defeat. For instance, by overcoming the anxiety of getting old through cognitive processing, one avoids unnecessary psychological pain. So, to eliminate suffering, we must overcome our craving of things. This is possible through the eightfold path. It consists of right understanding, that is, the comprehension of how everything is interconnected and temporary, specifically the 4 noble truths. Right thing, that is, propagating thoughts of detachment, non-harming and compassion, which also include thought for the other beings. Right speech, that is, speaking only positive and constructive things, otherwise maintaining a noble silence, practicing a speech that is devoid of lies, gossips and slander. Right action, that is, the actions that are meant to benefit and not harm other people or oneself. Right livelihood, that is, abstaining from making living from means which involves exploitation of people or animals. Right effort, that is, nurturing wholesome thoughts. Right mindfulness, that is, being fully aware of one's actions in the present and their likely consequences. And right concentration, that is, discipline the mind to concentrate to one point through the practice of meditation. The first component of this solution is related to wisdom, the next 3 to moral conduct, and the last 3 to mental discipline. Wisdom makes us ready to undertake the path, moral development helps us to get ready for it, and mental discipline helps us to follow it. The moral aspect of this path is related to the concept of karma, which means volitional action, whether of word, deed or thought. Every action has effects or consequences that rebound. One could hardly expect to free oneself from suffering while inflicting it on others. The third characteristic of existence is anatta or non-self. According to Rahula, Buddhism stands unique in denying the existence of a soul, self or Atman. According to the teaching of the Buddha, the idea of a personal self is an imaginary false belief which has no corresponding reality, and it produces harmful thoughts of me and mine, selfish desire, craving, attachment, hatred, ill will, conceit, pride, egoism and other defilements, impurities and problems. It is the source of all troubles in the world, from personal conflicts to wars between nations. To this false view can be traced all the evil in the world. According to Buddha, suffering is the result of the false impression that there is a separate self or ego. Everything in this world lacks a soul. Everything is made up of parts or elements, and they have no actual existence other than being a temporary organization of these elements. There is no separate self that can exist independently. What appears to be an ego or self is nothing but an impermanent gestalt formed by transient elements. A person is a combination of 5 elements or sekhans, which are form, feelings, perceptions, impulses and consciousness. A person is a temporary arrangement of these 5 elements. Nothing would be left if we remove the 5 elements. The term self or I is used for this temporary gestalt or body. Thus, the concept of self or soul is an illusion. The concept of anatta empowers the individual by erasing the boundaries that separate the personal self from the other's self. The person becomes a part of the whole universe rather than an isolated and powerless entity that is fighting against the rest of the world. This leads to the ultimate realization of a big self, the self which is boundless. This state of universal oneness or interconnectedness and realization is called enlightenment. Thus, human beings suffer from self-delusion, striving to get something which will inevitably be lost one day. So, the cure is to reach a higher state of enlightenment wherein the person has eliminated his desires, attachment and delusions. This in turn leads to compassion and feelings of care for others. As the self and the other are one, hurting or helping the other person means doing the same to oneself. The ultimate state of mind is called nirvana in Buddhism, which is described by Engler as not a place like heaven but a mental state in which all cravings, desires and dualistic ideas have been completely extinguished through the complete realization of anicca and anatta. According to Buddha, liberation is meant for everybody and can be achieved by everybody. Personality development in Buddhist tradition, the lesser and the greater self. Although Buddhism still believes in a non-self, it has distinguished between the lesser self and the greater self. The lesser self is the ego or the consciousness of one's mind and body. It emphasizes more on a sense of separateness between the self and the others, as well as on the individual limitations. It arises from one's sense of inadequacy of insecurity. Developing a sense of interconnectedness with the others and the nature helps to transcend this level of consciousness. The more an individual becomes complete, the more his or her ego diminishes. Although our egos remain with us forever, we can still control it. The greater self has been defined as the entire universe. This self can be realized through embracing every being in this universe. It forms the essential part or the essential aspect of the experience of enlightenment. Identification with a greater self does not mean that one must let go of the lesser self. The idea of attaining nirvana is to transcend one's ego orientation so that one is no longer controlled by it. Obstacles in growth. In Buddhism, the primary obstacles to growth are psychological in nature. The 3 tendencies of greed, hate and delusion are major roadblocks in the path of growth. They are considered as 3 fires in Buddhism. Although every individual has all the 3 qualities, they are dominated by one more than the others. Also, the balance between these qualities can change based on the circumstances of the individual. Healthy factors in personality development. Each unhealthy tendency is opposed by a healthy factor. According to Buddha, we need polar opposites to counter the unhealthy tendencies. Once an unhealthy tendency has been suppressed by a positive factor, it cannot arise. Person's karmas, biological and situational influences, as well as previous state of mind, determine his or her predomination with healthy and unhealthy factors, which may arise as groups of either positives or negatives. The central healthy factor is insight, which counters delusion. Insight helps the individual to see the object in its true essence. It helps to bring clarity in our judgment. Delusion and insight cannot coexist in the mind. A concept related to insight is mindfulness, which brings continued clarity in the understanding of the objects. The presence of these 2 factors signals the presence of other healthy mental states and are enough to suppress all the unhealthy factors. Arhat and Bodhisattva. Both Mahayana and Theravada or the Hinayana school of thought have different conceptions about an ideal individual. The Mahayana considers a Bodhisattva to be an ideal human being. It literally means enlightenment being. He is a highly compassionate human being who has decided to remain on this earth until everybody has been free from suffering. To fully comprehend the principle of selflessness, the Bodhisattva realizes that he or she cannot attain liberation until others are freed from suffering. The Theravada school of thought considers Arhat to be a complete being, someone who has completely detached himself or herself from the comforts and luxuries of having a family and possessions to become free in all senses from this material world. The word Arhat means one who has slain the enemy, or someone who has become free of all the passions and desires. This person is an unworldly ascetic who has been liberated from his pride, self-absorption, contempt and greed through the process of intensive spiritual training. Thus, he seeks liberation or nirvana from the elimination of desires and cravings. Vasubandhu and the Eight Consciousness. A number of scholars have written and talked about the Buddhist psychological insights into human nature. One of them was Vasubandhu, who was a renowned Buddhist scholar who lived during the 4th century. He gave the Vijnanavad, or the path of knowledge, or Yogachar, or the application of Yoga school of thought. He also authored the book titled Abhidharmakosh, which is one of the most important books in Buddhist psychology. Vasubandhu stated that whatever we experience exists in our mental process. That is, our knowledge of everything that exists around us is in our mind only. Although there is an experience, but there is no subject or Atman to have that experience. He talked about Vijnan or consciousness in his studies, which is one of the 5 skandhas and is multi-layered, including both conscious and unconscious aspects. According to him, there are 8 consciousness. The first level consists of our basic senses that help us to respond to the world at the most primary level. These include the consciousness of hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting and touching. The next level is referred to as Manovijnan or thought consciousness. It functions as the integrative ground for all the 5 basic senses. It works as a 6th sense, which helps us to become aware of the thoughts regarding the 5 senses. The next level is called the Manas or mind. Here, the higher order cognitive processes are carried out, such as memory, conception and evaluation. At this level, we become aware of being aware, but this creates the delusion of becoming aware of a personal self or I, which is the root of all the psychological problems. Finally comes the last level, which is called the Alaya Vijnan or storehouse consciousness. It can be referred to as the breeding ground for all the above 7 consciousness. The seeds for all the mental phenomena which we experience and produce are laid here in this vast ground. The seeds are nurtured by our conscious activities. For example, engaging in helping or empathetic behavior will help the seeds of empathy to grow and ripen. Similarly, engaging in anger or hatred will cause the seeds of aggression to grow and we will experience more anger and hate. This knowledge helps us to nurture and develop positive mental habits while cutting off the potential negative and destructive thoughts. This has far-reaching effects on the life and well-being of individuals. Alaya Vijnan provides the continuity of the karmic process where the seeds of one's actions continue to travel in an unending chain even when the subject is destroyed. These 8 consciousness are separate or distinct from each other. They work together and appear as manifestations or functions of the various cognitive processes. These are 8 consciousness but ultimately appear as one united force. Practice of Zen. The practice of Zen is a systematic process of training the mind in a disciplined manner which allows us to attain the realization of enlightenment. Zen is a school of Mahayana Buddhism which claims to represent the purest essence of Buddha's teachings. The origins of Zen can be traced back to the Siddhartha Gautam. The Zen, like all other Eastern psychologies, does not consider the mind and body as separate, but they are considered to be intimately interconnected to the point that one could more properly refer to a body-mind than a body and a mind. Various forms of meditation. The widely practiced form of Zen is Zazen, which is the sitting meditation. Here, the individual sits in a cross-legged position on the firm ground and maintains a straight and precise physical posture for a specific period of time. This posture signifies the oneness of mind and body. The position in Zazen is of immense importance. It is referred to as the full lotus, with the left foot on the right thigh and the right foot on the left thigh, and the head, neck, spine is in straight vertical line. The position signifies and expresses the oneness rather than duality of mind and body. This is the hallmark of proper Zen practice, as it helps to maintain the mental and the physical balance due to harmonization of the mind with the bodily processes. The state of consciousness that exists when one sits in the correct posture is in itself enlightenment. The harmonization of the mind is attained by focusing on one's breathing pattern. Any thoughts, images that occur during the process of meditation are to be dismissed as hallucinations or makyo. The aim here is to focus on the present, right here and right now. The practice of Zazen is important for purification of our mind. Just as we always take bath to clean ourselves of the dirt and dust, similarly, this practice helps us to let go of our past regrets and tension and worries of future. The Rinzai school of Zen Buddhism, the means of teaching Zazen, is the usage of koans. A koan refers to a public document. It consists of a set of statements or questions or anecdotes which are paradoxical in nature, has no logical or rational solution as long as the student tries to look for an answer using the perspective of duality. However, the statement is absolutely clear to an individual who is enlightened and perceives the statement form the realm of absolute non-duality. Koan is usually written by an enlightened teacher. These are given to students and they are interviewed. Interview is called senzen, individually as they asked to express their understanding of the koan. The answers are rejected if they are wrong, and the students are sent back to meditation till the time they arrive at breakthrough transcending dualistic thinking of the koan. Once they have arrived at the solution, they are given another koan. The process is repeated several times. Example of a koan statement would be, "What was your face before your parents were born?" and "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" The Soto school of Zen practices shikantaza to teach Zazen, which is just simply sitting and not trying to realize anything. The effects of this practice are allowed to take place without being too much sought after. A Soto teacher may also use koan as focal point of the Tisho. It is a dharma talk offered by a master to his students to enhance their understanding. Koan is seen as miniature version of life problems which have no logical resolution and understanding, just like life, which cannot be reduced to the categories construed by a dualistic thinking. The other form of Zen practice includes kinhin. It refers to a slow walk that is performed when the person might be tired by sitting in the same cross-legged position. It normalizes the blood circulation. In walking meditation, the person walks alone or in a group while maintaining the mindfulness and concentration. The attention is on the number of steps and the manner of walking and the pattern of breathing. Other forms of Zen practice. The next form is the gathas. These are short verses that help to focus attention solely on the task which is being performed. This makes every task important and sacred activity, and also involves our efficiency and ability to perform the task as we are fully concentrating on it. Another form of Zen practice is called the Gasho. It consists of putting hands together, joining the palms of one hand to another. Here, one hand signifies ourselves and the other hand stands for the person or the entire universe. This symbolizes the integration of the self with the other. When one does this, he or she becomes aware that everything is interconnected and united. This position is symbolic of non-duality. Chanting is also a part of Zen. When we chant, we focus only on the sound, experiencing the power of the sound of chanting sutras. Other forms of Zen practice include bowing, playing the shakuchaki, writing haikus, learning calligraphy and flower arranging, tea ceremony and martial arts such as karate, aikido, swordsmanship and archery. However, these forms of Zen expression are superfluous and the only form of Zen practice that is indispensable is the Zazen. At last, it is important to find a master to learn the correct practice of Zen who himself has mastered the truth that he has learned no matter how deep it is. According to Engler, only a teacher who has received dharma transmission, in other words, whose experience has been verified and authenticated by an enlightened master, is in a position to verify and authenticate the awakening of others. Enlightenment. One Buddhist term that is highly associated with enlightenment is nirvana. As already stated, it is a state of mind wherein all the cravings and desires have extinguished. It is achieved through self-discipline, meditation, and realization of the states of impermanence and selfless self. Nirvana also means extinction of all kinds of concepts and preconceived notions which prevent us from fully experiencing the reality. Thus, mindfulness-based meditation helps to remove these concepts and its ultimate goal is to reach the nirvana. Enlightenment in Zen is also called Satori. Enlightenment or Satori can simply be defined as the act of awakening one's own true self. It is the highest state of awareness. It is not something that can be expressed in words, but something which is experienced by the individual. Dogen Zenji interpreted the Buddha statement that everyone has the Buddha nature as everyone is the Buddha nature. This means that Buddha nature is not to be looked for outside or inside of a person, as it is the absolute universal reality. When we become aware of this fact and work in order to attain realization of the universal self, then in this process we become enlightened. Buddhism is based on the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. It is divided into two main branches of Buddhism, the Hinayana or the small vehicle and the Mahayana or the great vehicle. Its roots can be traced back to India. Later it was influenced by the Taoism of China and passed through Korea and Japan, from there to the rest of the world. Dependent origination is a law of causality, which implies that all internal and external events come into existence due to causes and conditions which can be internal or external. It believes that these causes and conditions are necessary for the internal and external events to coexist. Everything in this universe is connected to these events and there is no end to these causal interconnectedness. These events cannot exist by themselves. According to Buddha, there are three characteristics of existence: anicca, dukkha and anatta. Anicca, which means impermanence, implies that everything is continuously changing. Nothing is permanent. Dukkha, which roughly means suffering, refers to the dissatisfaction and distress that a person experiences due to too much attachment or aversion. Buddha suggested four noble truths as a solution to end any kind of dukkha. The third characteristic of existence is anatta or non-self, which states that there is no such thing as a soul and a person is a temporary combination of 5 elements or skandhas, which are form, feelings, perceptions, impulses and consciousness. Buddhism distinguishes between a lesser ego and a greater self. Also, it talks about 3 obstacles in the path of growth: greed, hatred and delusion. To counter these unhealthy factors, there exist positive factors like insight, mindfulness, non-attachment and non-aversion, which affect both mind and body. The Mahayana and Hinayana hold conceptions about an ideal human being. Mahayana calls this person Bodhisattva, or someone who has delayed his own liberation for the sake of others, and Hinayana calls him as Arhat, someone who has renounced everything to free himself from this world. According to Vasubandhu, a renowned Buddhist scholar, there are 8 consciousness. The first level consists of our basic senses that help us to respond to the world at the most primary level. These include the consciousness of hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting and touching. The next level is referred to as Manovijnan or thought consciousness. It functions as the integrative ground for all the 5 basic senses. The next level is called the Manas or mind. Here, the higher order cognitive processes are carried out, such as memory, conception and evaluation. Finally comes the last level, which is called the Alaya Vijnan or the storehouse consciousness. The seeds for all the mental phenomena that we experience and produce are laid here in this vast ground. The seeds are nurtured by our conscious activities. The Buddhist psychology sees emotions as part of our personality that interfere with our spiritual development, and they need to be eliminated. They are considered to be unwholesome and undesirable states of mind. According to Buddhist perspective, emotions arise in response to an attractive or repulsive object. There is an innate tendency in people to be either inclined towards an object or to move away from it. This is based on his or her perception of himself or herself as attractive or repulsive. The practice of Zen is a systematic process of training the mind in a disciplined manner, which allows us to attain the realization of enlightenment. Zen is a school of Mahayana Buddhism which claims to represent the purest essence of Buddhist teachings. One Buddhist term that is highly associated with enlightenment is nirvana. As already stated, it is a state of mind wherein all the cravings and desires have extinguished. Enlightenment in Zen is called Satori. Enlightenment or Satori can simply be defined as the act of awakening one's own true self. It is the highest state of awareness. It is not something that can be expressed in words, but something which is experienced by the individual.